Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Deputy Speaker, the President and the Deputy President of the Republic, House Chairpersons, whips of the whip of the majority party, and whips of other political parties. Ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends, Ben Okri once said, and I quote, "The most authentic thing about us is our capacity to create, to overcome, to endure, to transform, to love, and to be greater than our suffering." Close quote. This debate takes place when South Africa celebrates a poignant moment in history as we reach the 30-year milestone of the country's constitutional democracy. Parliament's strategic objective has been to create a non-racial, non-sexist and democratic society. And our primary mission has been centered on mobilizing all classes and strata that objectively stand to gain from the success of the cause for social and economic change. In this context, Parliament gives expression to its mandate as informed by the precepts of transformative constitutionalism, which the former Chief Justice of South Africa aptly asserts as being an enabling instrument to give expression to the country's transformation agenda. In his paper titled Transformative Constitutionalism, Justice Langa further makes reference to the post-amble of the interim constitution, which he asserts also expresses the pinnacle objective of South Africa's constitution, where he asserts that the underlying imperative of our constitution is to provide, and I quote, "a historic bridge between the past of a deeply divided society, characterized by strife, conflict, untold suffering and injustice, and a future founded on the recognition of human rights, democracy, a peaceful coexistence and development opportunities for all South Africans, irrespective of color, race, class, belief, or sex," close quote. Honorable President, in fact, when I stand here, ek dink nou maar net, ons moet nie hier naartoe kom omdat ons wil verkiesing kom baklei nie. Ons moet hier naartoe kom omdat ons die mandaat van die mense uitvoer. En die mandaat van die mense is om seker te maak, Parliament hou die executive accountable. En soos ons dink, as we reflect on this 30-year milestone of our constitutional democracy, we must bear in mind what we have inherited. We inherited a system that had inflicted far-reaching damage and oppression to millions of South Africans on the basis of race. We must therefore observe this 30-year milestone in the context of the progress made as a result of our rights-based agenda, which has been put in motion by our constitutional democracy under the ANC. These rights collectively represent our departure from a painful, oppressive, and discriminatory past, as we lean in towards creating a new South Africa from the ruinous past of colonialism and apartheid. During this first 30 years of our democracy, Parliament had to deal with laws that oppressed our fairness and equality. We have repealed that oppressive and discriminatory apartheid laws and enacted laws to overhaul the functioning of the broader state machinery. These actions have helped to solidify our democracy and assisted us to make great strides towards realizing our country's democratic goals. Furthermore, the efficacy of parliamentary business, particularly through the committees and debates in applying procedural processes and protocols, particularly as outlined in the Constitution and in the rules of both houses, have significantly improved throughout the years. Though through plenary discussions, questions, motions, and resolutions, members of Parliament continue to actively and robustly participate in policy debates while unpacking matters of material importance of the nation. Our improved coordination with the executive has also ensured the attendance of ministers in the sitting of both houses when required, leading to increase in executive responses to questions for oral and written reply. Agbare lede, Tydens COVID-19 het parlement bewys dat ons deur die gebruik van tegnologie tot 'n groot mate kon beantwoord aan die uitdaging wat gebied het in ons werk. 2 weke gelede, tydens ons wetgewende summit, noem professor Fikeni iets baie belangrik. Sê die wat mense observe van parlement is dat elke party staan op die platform vir sy eie party. Ons werk nie vir 'n gesamentlike Suid-Afrikaanse identiteit nie. Die enigste tyd wat ons vir onsself identifiseer as Suid-Afrikaners is wanneer die Springbokke die wêreldbeker wen. Wanneer Bafana goed doen in die AFCON. Wanneer ons atlete goed doen in die Olimpiese spele. Dit is die tyd wat ons onsself identifiseer as Suid-Afrikaners. Daar is foute volgens ons almal. En die ANC as 'n regerende party is die eerste een om die foute en die tekortkominge te erken. En dit moet ons sê, ons staan hier en regverdig onsself vir dinge wat in die verlede gebeur het nie. Ons staan ook hier en regverdig onsself. Ons sal ook nie onsself verdedig as ons 'n visie het vir die toekoms om 'n beter lewe vir alle Suid-Afrikaners aan te bied. Suid-Afrikaners het die reg op hulle eie werklikheid. En as iemand hier staan en die president wil antwoord op sy storie van Tinswalo, dan moet jy hom antwoord op die werklikheid van Tinswalo. Want elke mens ervaar sy eie werklikheid. En Daniel se werklikheid is die John se werklikheid. Daarom kan jy nie iemand anders se werklikheid ontken. As iemand vir jou sê, ek het onder 'n boom gebly. Ek het onder 'n boom gebly. Ek het nou 'n erf met water en toegang tot elektrisiteit. Ek het in 'n sinkhuis gewoon. Ek het nou toegang tot 'n RDP-huis. Load shedding is nie die einde van die aarde nie. En ek, president, is een van die mense wat voel, sodra jy van load shedding praat, dan begin hulle om jou te saboteer. Ons sal moet iets doen aan die sabotasie. Ons sal moet iets doen aan die sabotasie. Definitief. Nie spoedklaar het nie alle antwoorde nie. Maar Suid-Afrikaners weet ons kom van 'n verlede af waar ons by Kerslig matriek geskryf het. Gestudeer het vir ons matriekeksamens. Ons kom van 'n verlede af waar ons emmers gebruik het. Baie van ons het wegbeweeg van die wrede verlede en ons is nou by die punt waar ons waardigheid as mense gerespekteer word. En dit is wat belangrik is. As ons as mense ons waardigheid nie gerespekteer word nie, waar sal ons gaan? Hoe kan John Steenhuisen saam met my in 1981 gedroom het? Want ons werklikhede verskil. Ons werklikhede verskil. Dit wat my werklikheid in blikkies was, kan nie sy werklikheid in Durban, KwaZulu-Natal gewees het nie. Daar bestaan nie dieselfde werklikheid vir mense wat in apartheid gebenefit het en vir ons wat deur apartheid geleef het net om te bestaan, om die dag van môre te kan sien. En dit is die rede waarom ek sê, agbare president, ons ken die werklikheid van Tinswalo en ons ervaar die werklikheid van Tinswalo, want ons weet waarvanaf sy kom. Daarom kan ons anders 'n beter toekoms probeer aanbied, omdat ons weet wat was die verlede, waarvandaan ons gekom het. Gewoonlik raak ek nie deel van julle se baklei nie, want ek glo parlement moet ten alle tye probeer om vir almal te akkommodeer. Maar dit is baie hartseer as jy uitgaan en mense wat baat gevind het by hierdie regering, sê die president lieg. Ek plaas dit as 'n aanhalingstekens. Ek sê weer, my werklikheid is nie jou werklikheid nie. Moet nie my werklikheid ontken, omdat jy jou werklikheid beleef nie. Elke een van ons weet waarvanaf ons kom. My familie bly vandag nog in die villages van die Ooskaap. En so ons weet, watter verbeteringe, as ons langs die pad afry, Koffie Baba, sien ons al die huise wat gebou is vir die mense, waar daar voorheen geen huise was. So hierdie werklikheid wat ek ervaar, is my werklikheid. En die werklikheid wat Tinswalo ervaar, is haar werklikheid. So president, gaan voort met die goeie werk. En waar ons foute maak, sal ons dit aanspreek. Jy voel jammer vir Auntie Fatima, wat nog kan samosas maak. Wat van die kinders van Palestina,
wat elke dag doodgemaak word en wat jy regverdig. Wat van die kinders van Palestina wat elke dag doodgemaak word en wat jy regverdig. Wat jy voel Israel het die reg om homself te verdedig teen kinders, teen weerlose vroue, teen weerlose mense. Die werklikheid wat ons as Suid-Afrikaners ervaar. Elke een ervaar 'n verskillende werklikheid. So laat ons hiervan afgaan en weet, 30 jaar na demokrasie, het ons nog steeds 'n hoop om die ongeregtigheid van 360 jaar uit te wis. Met daardie woorde, Speaker, sal ek nie teruggaan na my speech toe nie. Ek wil net een punt lig. Kan ons asseblief vroue toegang tot land gee, sodat ons as vroue kan wys dat ons 'n verskil kan maak waar ons is. Ten spyte van geslagsgeweld, ten spyte van mishandeling, ten spyte van die feit dat ons as leiers die polarisasie aanvoer, omdat ons net hier staan en mekaar aanvaar en nie begin bou aan 'n gesamentlike Suid-Afrikaanse identiteit nie. Baie dankie.
Honorable members, I thank the Honorable Deputy Chair of the NCOP. I now invite the Honorable Groenewald to address us.
Honorable Speaker.
Order, honorable members, Honorable Groenewald is on the floor. Thank you.
Honorable Speaker, through you to the Honorable President. Agbare President, u is nou 6 jaar die president van Suid-Afrika. Maar is baie duidelik dat u in hierdie 6 jaar 'n kleinserige president geword het. Suid-Afrika is nie geseënd met baie wêreldkampioene nie. U het die Springbokke geluk gewens en 'n paar ander goeie prestasies op wêreldvlak, maar u het nagelaat om vir Driekus du Plessis 'n wêreldkampioen geluk te wens. Dis kleinserigheid van u, want hy het eintlik gesê en kritiek uitgespreek wat die meeste mense van Suid-Afrika weet, maar blykbaar weet u dit nie. Nou ek wil vir Driekus du Plessis in hierdie parlement sê, baie geluk met jou wêreldtitel. Dis harde werk, baie dissipline en hard oefen. Honorable President, it is just natural.
Okay, honorable member, I'm sorry, Honorable Groenewald, please take a seat. Honorable member, what is your point of order? Use your mic, please. Okay, they will bring the mic to you.
Oh, thank you.
Honorable member, yes?
Yes, thank you, Honorable Speaker. I could hear the Afrikaans that was said by the Deputy Chairperson of NCOP. But I can't hear this Afrikaans. So we are requesting to get the gadgets for translation. It's quite important for us to hear.
Honorable member, thank you very much for alerting us to the fact that you don't, but there are gadgets on your chairs. Thank you very much. Order! Honorable members, whoa, stealthy as a belief. Continue, Honorable Groenewald.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I think it's just natural that the President will look over his term, and I want to say today to him, Honorable President, what is your legacy? What's your legacy as President of South Africa? And therefore we must go and look at the real facts. And if we go and look at the economy, we will see that when you became the president in 2018, the growth rate the economic growth rate was 1.3%. Last year, it was 0.9%. So under your leadership, the economy just retreated backwards, causing havoc for the people of South Africa. We had a meeting with you as leaders on ESCOM, and you yourself said 20 years ago, ESCOM was seen as one of the best electricity utilities in the world. Who destroyed ESCOM? The ANC destroyed ESCOM. You were in charge of the war room to end load shedding. You failed. When you became president in 2018, the local currency against the dollar was nothing else than 11 Rand 55. Yesterday, it was 18 Rand 92. That's under your leadership. And if you go and look at the JSE and the loss of 22% in US dollars, while if you, for instance, look at the NASDAQ 100, they gained 147% under your term as leader, and the S&P 500 gained 75%. Those are the realities. If you go and look at the unemployment rate, when you became the president, the unemployment rate was 24%. It is now 32%. If you go and look at the youth, since you became president, and over the years, it increased with 20%, where the unemployment rate for the young people, the youth, at this moment is actually 64%. I want to talk about corruption. Honorable Chairperson or Speaker, the President himself said that the ANC is accused number one when it comes to corruption. And I said, well, that's what the President said. And I said to yourself, but you are number one of accused number one. And now you have a number two who's also accused of corruption, but nothing happens. What happened with corruption in South Africa? The fact is that your Secretary General, Fikile Mabula, he said, okay. Fikile Mbalula, he said that they lied to protect the former president in terms of corruption. They must use, the ANC must use this position to defend and to protect the previous president. Honorable President, if you look up at the wall there, you will see there's a banner of Parliament oversight and accountability. There was no accountability. There was no oversight. And it comes to you as well as the next president after Zuma. When they came to the Pala issue, it was this ANC in Parliament who protected you. Why? You said you did nothing wrong. Why didn't you come forward and be accountable to the people of South Africa? I want to quote what the Archbishop, Bishop Stanley Makgoba said. He said, and I quote, "It is frightening to realize that as a society, we've become so worn down by lies, corruption, and incompetence that we're no longer interested in finding out the truth. We've been captured by lies." Close quote. I want to talk about crime in South Africa. Honorable President, in terms of the Global Organized Crime Index, South Africa now ranks 7th in the world, 3rd in Africa, because of mafia-style criminal networks and organized crime syndicates. The murder rate when you became the president was 35 per 100,000 of the population. It is now 45 per 100,000 of the population. U agbare president het in New York ontken dat daar so iets is soos plaasmoorde in Suid-Afrika. Ek moes 'n paar debatte met u gevoer het nadat u minstens erken het dat daar wel plaasmoorde is. En u het daarom 'n mate daarvan gesê dat u dit veroordeel. Agbare president, ons sê ons is almal voor die reg. My vraag is, wat het gebeur in Groblersdal? Die agbare minister van polisie en die agbare minister van justisie gaan woon 'n gewone hofsaak by waar daar besluit moet word of daar byl gegee gaan word of nie. Het hulle nie werk om te doen nie? Hoekom gaan hulle soontoe? Hulle gaan soontoe want hulle het 'n politieke motief. En daardie motief is om die voorsittende beampte te intimideer. Daar word nou van 3 jong mense verwag om te gerapporteer het. Hulle het gerapporteer. Ek het persoonlik 'n klag gelê teen Julius Malema in 22 sowel as in 23 waar hy uitings maak van shoot to kill. And the revolutionary must not be scared or afraid to kill. Die klagtes is gelê. Hoekom word hy nie gearresteer nie? Dat hy ook gaan aansoek doen, verborg. U is besig onder u leierskap om ongelykhede te skep. Hierdie manne het hulle self gaan oorgee. Hulle is geregtig om borg te kry. Ek wil praat oor hongersnood. Agbare president, u departement van gesondheid sê dat ongeveer dat meer as 15,000 kinders sterf jaarliks in Suid-Afrika. En 1/3 van daardie kinders sterf as gevolg van honger. Dit beteken 10,000 kinders sterf basies jaarliks weens honger. In KwaZulu-Natal, noord van Durban, is daar kinders wat sand eet sodat hulle net kan voel hulle het iets in hulle maag. But you, Honorable President, you have a plane named Inkwazi, and I want to say that there's also a restaurant in that plane, the Inkwazi restaurant, where you wine and dine at a rate of 24,000 rand per person. So you wine and dine for 24,000 rand per person in the Inkwazi restaurant, while children of South Africa are dying because of hunger. You, the Commander-in-Chief, did you investigate? If you did, what is the result? And if you did not investigate, why not? Because that means that you don't feel for the hungry people of South Africa. I want to say, and I again want to quote what the Archbishop said. He said, "Meanwhile, as politicians begin to realize they may not be in power after the next election, their deception, scams, and fraud grow more blatant by the day as they grow hungrier and hungrier for the ill-gotten proceeds of power. They walk shamelessly and brazenly with their dirty feet through every aspect of our South African lives." Close quote. I want to say again, with their dirty feet through every aspect of our South African lives. The message is clear, Honorable President. It's time to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I now invite the Honorable Minister of Human Settlements to address the House.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Greetings to the Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, Deputy President Paul Mashatile, presiding officers, cabinet colleagues, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen. I just can't believe that Honorable Groenerwald, you could stand here in a democratic South Africa and defend what happened in Groblersdal. Apartheid and hoisting of apartheid symbols, shame on you. Babu Shabisa, The worst thing you could have done to us is to remind what IFP has done to us, those who stayed in township. IFP was a symbol of mobilization of tribal and also the death of many who lived in the townships closer to hostels and could not travel with the trains. Despite that, in this democratic government, this ANC government has made sure that even the hostel dwellers, we do upgrade their hostels and make them a residential area where families can live, because we believe that it is by doing so that we will build a reconstructed South Africa, but a South Africa that is reconciled, that is a better nation for all, despite the past. So it's the worst thing that we can do today. When the ANC government came into power 30 years ago, it undertook to build a new country that is based on equality, fairness, and prosperity for all. Fundamentally, the ANC understood that moving away from apartheid did not only mean protection from unjust laws, but it also meant breaking all the pillars of apartheid, of which spatial configuration was one. Inspired by the Freedom Charter that stated that the new South Africa, that the African National Congress sought to build, there shall be houses, security, and comfort. Our government adopted policies that allowed for the provision of houses for the poorest of the poor. Thus far, our government has already restored the dignity of many people, and it will continue to do so by providing them with dignified shelter. Our government further understood that a house is made of walls and beams, but a home is built with love and dreams. It is for this reason that our housing policy has shifted since 1996, so that we could provide the majority of the people in the country with sustainable human settlements that are closer to economic opportunities and social amenities, which enables them to fulfill the dreams in homes filled with love, health, safety, and happiness. Mr. President, in your State of the Nation address last week, you narrated a story of a democratic child, Dintswalo. That Dintswalo's formative years were spent in a house provided by the state, one of millions of houses built to shelter the poor. Indeed, under the leadership of the NC government, the number of formal household dwelling grew from 5.2 million in 1996 to 15.8 million in 2022. Households living in traditional dwellings have likewise significantly reduced since 1996, with over 1 million fewer households living in traditional dwellings in 2022, as compared with what we stated in 1996. Whilst there can be no doubt that government has built millions of houses through the RDP program, it has also built thousands of units of social housing, rectified housing defects, provided housing material to individual households, and contributed significantly to the cases of emergencies and disasters. Honorable members, of the 10.6 million additional households now living in formal dwellings, 4.8 million households were provided by this government. In terms of gender, out of those, we have also provided, in terms of the state houses that have been provided, 1.9 million households led by women as beneficiaries. For example, last year, Mr. President, we handed over a newly built house to Ella Tlhabane, Kobelabela. Ga re bolela le Mme Tlhabane, o bile a re botsa a re, ha e sale a dula ka hara mokhukhu for 15 years. O ikwa thabile gagolo ga bona tsena ka hara ntlo, a leboga mmušo wa ANC, a leboga le gore ka nnete re mo file boikhutso le gore a kgone go thekwa a tshireletsegile. Last week, Mr. President, you called on all of us to join the fight against gender-based violence and femicide, which has been characterized as a second pandemic in our country. The provision of houses to women has gone a long way in helping women fight GBV. A woman who owns a house and has the security of tenure does not have to be trapped in an abusive relationship that often ends in femicide. For this reason, we have also intensified our title deeds program and to ensure security of tenure to provide economic asset to the beneficiaries. We handed over a title deed to Mme Mabel Sekgopa in a city of Tshwane, Ga-Rankuwa under Mawika. It was a very moving ceremony where we had Mme Abolela Are. I finally ke thola title deed mo ile reng ke a tseba gore ga gona motho o tla ntšhang ka ra ntlo ke tla dula mo ke ikwa ke khutshitše le gona ke tseba gore batlogolo ba ka le bana ba ka ba tla tseba gore ke mo ke dutseng gona. Similarly, When we handed over a title deed to a 100-year-old Miss Prakasa, she said it was an exciting moment for her to receive the title deed as a homeowner at that age. She was moved to the house 40 years ago under Group Areas Act movement. This is our restoration of dignity and ensuring that women who could not own title deeds under apartheid government have a say and have properties in their hands. Mr. President, such stories as this one are a clear demonstration that we are not passive observers of our history, but we are the authors of this history. Not only have we provided housing to women, but we have also embarked on a women empowerment program through procurement processes. You will recall, Mr. President, that when you marked National Women's Day in 2020, you announced government's plan to expand women's access to economic opportunities by setting 40% aside for public procurement for women-owned businesses. For our part, as Human Settlements Department, including our entities in all our grants, we have made this a policy. I can report today, Mr. President, under this program and your vision, that not only we're talking about the past in what we have done, but in this administration, we have ensured that 40% out of the 13.2 billion is set aside in this financial year for women-owned companies. And as we speak already, 1.7 billion has been spent on their companies. And we do believe we will reach our 40%. This is instance where you find Limpopo and Mpumalanga. The entire budget of HSDG in building houses is spent on women contractors. And I must say they deliver, Mr. President, within budget and in record time and quality houses. In 2020, the State of the Nation address, Mr. President, you spoke about social housing program to build rental housing for low-income families, which could leverage as much as 9 billion for private investment in the construction of 37,000 rental apartments. Again, I'm pleased to report that working in partnership with Infrastructure South Africa, which was launched under this administration, the Social Housing Regulatory Agency has increased the pipeline of social housing projects, some of which have been completed, as also others are in halfway. Just here in Western Cape, 3 projects, Goodwood Station, worth 464 million, with 1,055 units, has been completed. Maitland News, valued at 94 million, with 204 units completed. 8 projects in Gauteng. Riverside News, phase 3 and 4, valued at 531 million, will be completed in October this year. Lufereng, valued at 184 million with 407 units completed. Forgeville, valued at 105 million with 258 units completed. There are many more. You go to KwaZulu-Natal, we've got Hospital Street social housing, which is sitting at 54%, Bridge City, which is sitting at 78%, and also in Northern Cape, Hull Street, which is sitting at 40% to the value of 144. Mpumalanga with KwaDokuhle, 193 million worth of a project, 492 units at 32%. This is the work that we continue under your leadership, Mr. President. Yesterday, I had an engagement with CBOs and NGOs and COs here in the Western Cape, appealing to the national government to protect and provide services for them. They narrated how they live in a city that does not care about them. Similarly, I went to Nomzamo community. They narrated the condition they live in, where rubbish is not collected, sewer is running in the street. Yet they were reminding me to say, Minister, don't listen to them when they say they govern better, they rule better. It's a fallacy, it's for the few. With regards to our policy, we committed to them that we will change our policies and principles and programs to ensure that if a government or a province or a municipality does not care about our people, we'll come in as national government and show that we care, as we continue to do. Mr. President, the draft white paper...
Conclude, honorable member.
Thank you very much. As I conclude, as we say, we can never allow people who say to us, let us not talk about apartheid, because 30 years later, shockingly, the same people are supporting apartheid Israel under us. Mr. President, our policies are geared to help South Africa. And that's why we say, with the work that we have done, the foundation that has been laid, we continue to provide services for all, not discriminatory. But this is a government that can be trusted and vote for ANC.
Our next speaker is going to be Honorable Labuskagli.
Honorable Speaker, Mr. President, members of Parliament, honored guests, and the most important people, fellow South Africans. From our history, it is evident that we are resilient people, able to adjust and survive even in the extreme difficult times and circumstances. However, Mr. President, after your 5-year term of empty promises, you and your ANC government are certainly testing our resilience. From constant load shedding, forever increasing violent crimes, high levels of unemployment, especially the youth, loss of investment due to corruption, poor management, and cadre deployment, all of us, it has ultimately contributed to our critical economic situation. A government's main task is to create an environment for economic growth and opportunities, as well as to provide service delivery through effective policies and legislation, none of which you have been able to achieve in your term. In fact, Mr. President, you have done the exact opposite. If we take only but one example, the NHI bill, which has just been bulldozed through Parliament with your ANC majority, will actually provide people with less healthcare, specifically affecting the poorest of the poor. It is clear as day that the NHI bill is unconstitutional and unimplementable. This has been pointed out not only by the Democratic Alliance, but also by organizations such as Business for South Africa and Business Unity South Africa. Even medical associations such as the South African Medical Association has warned that we will have a complete skill drain of medical practitioners should this bill be implemented. Mr. President, it is clear that the NHI bill will be the final nail in South Africa's economy and will completely collapse an already underfunded and decimated public health sector. Despite passing this bill, South Africans still do not even know how it will be funded. The only conceivable way would be to increase taxes on an already overtaxed population. One only has to look at the troubles our public healthcare system is facing now to know that this bill is nothing more than a cheap political tool for the ANC to try and save itself from an inevitable losing its majority. Almost all public health facilities are understocked and underfunded, with many not having the necessary equipment to complete life-saving operations. In fact, most public hospitals do not even meet the minimum criteria for certification by the Office of Health Standard Compliance. Some public hospitals do not even have computers or electricity at times, with doctors having to operate with cell phone torches. In some hospitals, patients are pulled up flights of stairs to the operating room because the lifts either don't work from lacking of service or because they have not exempt from load shedding. How can we possibly implement this bill when we have the shining beacons of maladministration and corruption, such as Livingston Hospital in the Eastern Cape, Palanomi in the Free State, and Rahima Musa in Gauteng? We have a massive shortage of doctors and nurses in the country. Just the other week, we heard how approximately 800 doctors who recently graduated and finished community service are sitting at home without a job because the ANC government cannot fund them. All the while, we pay millions of rands a year for Cuban doctors to come to South Africa. Even your own Minister of Health admitted that there is no funding for these posts. Where are we supposed to fund the NHI from when we can't even put doctors in our hospitals? The budget implications for the NHI bill are enormous. Again, one of your own, the Minister of Finance, has stated that there is no money to implement NHI. If your own minister has admitted this, then why, Mr. President, are you playing with the people's lives for the sake of cheap politicking? It is time you play open cards with us,
all admit that NHI is not financially feasible and put business and medical associations and the people of South Africa at ease. But I can go on. The feedback received during the public participation processes of the NHI bill was not carefully considered by neither the National Assembly nor the National Council of Provinces. Public participation is one of the core elements what makes our constitution and lawmaking one of the strongest around the world. Mr. President, the DA wrote to you requesting you to refer the NHI bill back to Parliament as it will not pass constitutional muster. Both BUSA and BSA have written to you requesting not to sign the bill. You cannot just stick your head in the sand and pretend these very real issues do not exist. It is prescribed in the Constitution that you must refer a bill back to Parliament if there are constitutional concerns. But it looks like you would rather pander to your ANC colleagues than to your constitutional obligations. You have had your chance, but your time is now up, Mr. President. The DA will fight for the achievement of realistic universal health care and will ensure that public facilities are strengthened to improve service delivery and accountability without detrimentally financially burdening our country, as the unconstitutional NHI bill will do. Under a DA-anchored government, no person will be excluded from accessing quality health care. Under a DA-anchored government, there will be a realization for progressive
As you
rights
conclude,
as
honorable member.
enshrined in Section 27 of the Constitution.
Thank you very much. We will now proceed to Honorable Malachi.
Thobela Speaker sa National Assembly, Mopresidente wa rena, Deputy President wa rena, Chairperson ya NCOP. I am not going to greet the murderers who contributed to the killing of the people of Palestine. I am not going to greet the IFP, a political party that was funded by right-wing murderers who have killed the people of Thokoza, KZN, Sebokeng, and many other parts of South Africa. The people who worked against the people's power. President, the story of Tintswalo is a story of hope, reflecting on opportunities, possibilities created by the breakthrough of democracy, touching and transforming the lives of people from as far as Ngezingi, Ngomo, in the deep rural areas. Honorable members, we also acknowledge that there are many young people who are not employed or in education or training programs. Their socio-economic challenges must be addressed urgently. They also want to be Tintswalos. 30 years into democracy, our challenge to ensure that we sustain the areas of progress to make sure the people of South Africa continue to have access to clear electricity, water, sanitation, waste collection, and other basic services. South Africans want a consistent, effective policy implementation led by the ANC. Despite the technical glitches impacting on NEFSAS, over 4.1 million university students and 2.4 million TVET students have been supported by NEFSAS since 1994. Those are the achievements. President, just to remind them that in 2024, after a clear outcry that NEFSAS must also try to assist those that are in the bracket of 350,000 who were not funded before, the ANC-led government is committed to assist to fund those that have been missing in that area. Because we understand as the ANC that there are people who were too rich to access NEFSAS, but too poor to afford education. President, we also welcome the 1.6 million presidential employment program opportunities created for youth placement in various sectors to gain skills and experience. The digital technology has created many opportunities as the youth earn income through online platforms, building their own creative careers. For example, President, through the influence of the ANC-led government, our local DJs are able to showcase their talent and promote their music internationally. President, in the previous financial year, the NYDA empowered 2,220 youth-owned enterprises through the financial interventions, which took form through the NYDA grant programs and NYDA voucher programs. Through these financial business interventions, 6,796 jobs were created for young people employed by youth-owned businesses. Those are achievements of the ANC. Let's then benefit. Through the mentorship access to the market and business management training programs, the NYDA provided 34,209 young people with support. There is a direct relationship, President, between funding of youth-owned enterprises and the creation of jobs. One of the most significant achievements was the removal of work entry experience and entry-level employment by government. We call upon the private sector to follow the instruction of the President, your funders, DA. Mr. President, we welcome that the UIF-funded labor activation program, LAB, that seeks to support employment and the training of the youth. We know the intention is to create 2 million work opportunities in the immediate future. We urge the Department of Employment and Labor, and supported by Treasury, to roll out this program without further delay. President, the following program must urgently be fast-tracked. We must reskill the youth to respond to the economic demand of the country, the challenging world of intelligence and digital transformation. We need a massive higher education through digital transformation to ensure that we target and make sure we meet the National Development Plan target. We shall continue when we come back in the 7th administration to open the doors of learning and teaching. Siyabuya. President, UNISA and other universities during COVID-19 demonstrated such capabilities. We should develop the state-of-the-art specialized universities and TVET colleges aligned with our industrial strategy and the capabilities of the various districts. Our higher education institutions do not only contribute to the skill development, but also a high impact on local economic development in areas where the institution of higher learning. Higher education institutions should also be aligned with our mega infrastructure projects of development. President, it is only the African National Congress-led government that was able to break the cycle of poverty in many families, and one of the key achievements were delivered by the ANC. Today, a child of a domestic worker, a child of an informal worker, a child of an unemployed parent, today is a doctor, is an engineer, is a chartered accountant, is a pilot, is a CFO, is a CEO, and many other professions. It is only because of the ANC-led government in the past 30 years. It is clear, President, that even if they deny some in the DA are products, are mini Tinswalos, they know that they are products of the Inswalo program of the African National Congress. President, Premier Panyaza Lusuifu has demonstrated that provinces can also expand youth development programs through the Nasispani program. The presidential employment program should be doubled, and all provinces should follow the example of Gauteng, including the Western Cape. We must address the market dominance in the telecommunication sector. President, the youth of the country has long demanded a free data for all. And we know that when we come back, it shall be implemented. The global trends have shown that small business sector is the highest job creator supported by industrial economy.
As you conclude,
South Africa remains the most unequal country where the wealth is still controlled by the white male minorities, and that shall be restructured. We urgently call upon the restructuring of the economy so the economy of the country reflects the demographics of the country. We shall decisively address the land question for
Your time is
agricultural
up.
production and human settlements so that we address the asset inequalities. Thank you very much.
Honorable Olomisa.
Chairperson, Honorable President and Deputy President, and honorable members. Mr. President, the United Democratic Movement fully agrees with the sentiment that South Africa must be rebuilt, as you had indicated in your State of the Nation address. The UDM will give its perspective on this question, where I will have more time on the 2nd of March at the Gallagher Convention Center, when we will be launching our manifesto for 2024 national and provincial elections. Xa sisakha le ndlu, izawusikhumbuza ke mongameli ukuthi phaa eBhayibhileni umprofeti waGayi chapter 2 verse 3 and 4 uthi, ngubani na osekhoyo apho sayikhumbulayo le ndlu ngexesha yayisesebuqaqawuleni bayo, niyibona njani ngoku? Sawubeka ke into ezifana nezondo commission uba ile damage yenzekileyo siphi ngoku. What I would like to raise with you, Mr. President, in the limited time I have, is the matter that you had last year instructed Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana to attend to, which is the matter of the SATBVC state pensioners. Your public instruction created a legitimate expectation within the community of thousands upon thousands of ex-civil servants and their families that their complaints will at long last be attended to. Mr. President, a year has lapsed and nothing has happened to fulfill your instruction. Aside from a meeting I had with the minister on the 22nd of March 2023, that created some expectation with the Pensioners Committee, nothing further happened. As you might be aware, the SATBVC pensioners have now resorted to a legal route to seek to effect your instruction, which will take time and resources. Yet National Treasurer, GEPF, and the PIC did not go to court to consult with anyone before they used pensioners' monies to bail out SOEs and funded BE transactions to the tune of billions of rands. I would therefore strongly recommend an alternative solution from your office, and that is that an independent body with chartered accountants and tax experts be mandated to handle the matter with subpoena powers to clear the house. That the erstwhile asset managers like Sanlam and others, the GEPF, the PIC, and National Treasury be made to give answers to this independent body, with its primary goal to clear as many claims as possible, as soon as possible, because the consequences of our decisions affect people's lives. Mr. President, as some of these pensioners have passed away in 2023 and others long before that, who did not get to enjoy the benefits of their labors. Oh makhulu, notatomkhulu, balentwazana kuthiwa nguThintswalo, bafuna imali yabo ababeyicontribute kwipension abalwinani banikeni imali yabo abantu. Niyeke uthatha imali ze-pensions beef up ii-BEE companies ningabanikanga sanutya yonke into leni. A similar scenario is playing out amongst ex-mine workers who had been promised attention during former President Mbeki and Zuma's tenures, who had been retrenched during or using the so-called blue card system. The UDM proposes that a task.
As you conclude,
No, the next 5 minutes. I'll pass them in the 5 minutes. That's not the 3 minutes.
no, Honorable Minister. Look at the watch on the right.
Obvious. Kodwa ke sithi ke kuyo yonke lento izinto zasezimayini nabasemahlabathini nabaseRustenburg mabanikwe imali zabo abanye basemahlabathini bekuthiwe bazawunikwa i-tent inansika
The
i-rights.
time is up.
Zathetha makwedintunani amasela la.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to Honorable Seropen.
Thank you very much, Mr. House Chair. Mr. President, in November 2017, you promised, if you were elected leader of your party, that you would implement a 10-point New Deal. You echoed Franklin D. Roosevelt, and you promised to pull millions of South Africans out of poverty and into the mainstream economy. We stand here 6.5 years later, and that landscape, that utopian landscape you painted then, has not come to pass. What we instead have is the shadow of unfulfilled promises and a deepening economic crisis. And this is because of the failures of your government, particularly in job creation. You broke the very first promise that you made to this country. And the young people bear the brunt of this crisis. 70% of young people aged 15 to 24 have been unable to secure jobs. And the government's stranglehold on the business environment has choked the ability for this economy to create jobs. Unemployment has surged from 20% in 1994, since we hear a lot in this debate about the progress since 1994. So let's look at some progress. 20% unemployment in 1994. We now have 32.9% unemployment in 2024. When you include people who have given up looking for work because they cannot find a job, that unemployment rate is an alarming 42.4%. Now, to add insult to injury, instead of rectifying our economic mistakes, the ANC has shifted the burden onto a shrinking tax base and plans to do so again later this month in the budget. Slow economic growth has created a tax to GDP ratio of 25%, which is one of the highest in the world. South Africans have one of the highest tax to GDP ratios in the world. South Africans are overburdened with tax. And these citizens pay much more tax compared not to wealthy countries, but to developing and middle income countries. The citizens, through tax, are paying a huge financial price to fund the ANC's failures. Now, government's failure to manage public debt has pushed us towards a fiscal crisis, and 20% of all government revenue is now dedicated to servicing debt. Not healthcare, not police, not teachers, debt. And this means that we have limited resources for investment into infrastructure and essential services. National debt is now over 5.2 trillion rand. And South Africa cannot go on like this. And in the debate today so far, we've heard the ANC double down on BE and cadre deployment, which shows us who their true constituency is. It is not the millions of South Africans looking for work or looking for opportunity. Their real constituencies are a handful of cadre deployees and a few thousand BEE billionaires. And their entire system, as they've debated today so far, shows us who they're going to should they attempt to win another election. So South Africa cannot go on like this. And thankfully, every piece of information shows us, Mr. President, that you are the outgoing president. And we will not have to face, if the voters make the right choices, we will not face a green-red coalition of doom, but we will have a blue coalition for change. Now, let me tell you what the blue coalition for change, a DA-led government, will do. I see the ANC is heckling a lot when we mention the Coalition for Change. It is precisely because they're terrified that they're all going to be prosecuted for corruption and maladministration whenever we mention the change of government. But this blue coalition of change will get the economic engine revving again. It is essential to do so to lift millions of people out of poverty. And we will do so by overhauling labor regulations that limit job growth. We will make sure that young people and older people who have been locked out of the economy get skills through apprenticeships and development programs. And we will boldly put an end, finally, to apartheid, classification of race and employment equity and preferential procurement. We will no longer use those outdated and crass categories to classify people. Our focus will be on meritocracy and non-racialism to make sure that diversity and merit thrive. On the tax system, we will commit to no new taxes, unlike what the finance minister will be announcing in a month from now. We will also prevent hidden tax increases and to make sure the poor are taken care of, who are struggling with the cost of living crisis. The ANC MPs who earn all more than R1 million here love to heckle about the poor. None of them are in that basket. But for the poor out there, we will expand the zero-rated VAT food basket so that you can buy chicken, you can buy essential nutrients, and you can feed your families. And lastly, we will make sure that everyone pays their fair share of taxes by ensuring that SARS has the capabilities. We will undo the gutting of SARS under state capture. We'll also rescue public finances from the fiscal cliff. We will stabilize public debt. We will make sure that we don't waste government money, unlike the hecklers on the side over here. And we will end this obsessive culture of bailouts to state-owned enterprises. And I'm looking forward to the Appropriations Committee on Wednesday because I believe SAA has lost another 700 million rand in the last year. And we look forward to taking you on bailouts there. We will also rescue small businesses, and we will make sure we will build an export-orientated economy that makes sure that we rescue South Africa from this economic calamity. This is not going to come about through any New Deal or New Dawn. It will not come about through any New Deal or New Dawn. And as we look back, we've gone from a New Deal to a New Dawn to a false dawn, and now to Ramageddon. So the choice for our country is clear. We can't carry on with unfulfilled promises. Thank you to the ANC. Your time is up, as mine now ends as well. But we will get a better tomorrow through a blue coalition of change that rescues South Africa.
Up. Honorable Zulu.
Naye lo Dintswalo osuka la, Honorable Speaker. Naye ukwazile ukuthi azofika la ngoba samlwela ukuthi azakwazi uDintswalo lo azoma la esitikini akwazi ukukhuluma. Nawe Dintswalo noma uhleli ngale walwelwa sethi uyafuna or awufuni. Chairperson, Honorable Speaker, she's still here in the House. Your Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, Your Excellency Deputy President Paul Mashatile, my colleagues, members of the executive who are here today, honorable members of parliament, nani nonke emakhaya, ngicela ukubingelela nina ikakhulukazi ngoba simela ngenxa yenu. Sila sikhuluma nje sikhulumela imisebenzi esiyenzayo siyenzela nina. Silanje ngoba sathunywa yini kusukela ngo-1994 nathi kithi nawa amandla hambani niyosisebenzela, hambani niyolungisa impilo zethu, hambani niyobonisa ukuthi iSouth Africa entsha ingaba khona, ingaba possible. Ngibonge kakhulu Chairperson ukuthi nginikezwe leli thuba i-organization yami engihamba ngiziqhayisa ngayo i-African National Congress enginikeze lethuba lokuthi namhlanje ke ngithi qabaqaba kancane ngokuthi i-African National Congress yenzeni isazowenzani masiqhubeka ngomsebenzi ozayo. Ngimela Honorable President and Deputy President ngumama kaDintswalo, ngu-auntie kaDintswalo, ngu-grandmother kaDintswalo, ngugogo kaDintswalo. La phakathi kwethu sinabomkhulu, sinabomalume, sinobaba bakaDintswalo.
laba abazinikezela long before 1994 ukuthi ukhona uDintswalo ozophila abaqala ukumenzela imisebenzi ngo-1994 kodwa ngicela ukusho ukuthi baqala ukwenza lokho long before 1994. Ngicela ukuthi ngithi Mr President ukhulume ngoDintswalo uthe ungakaqedi nokukhuluma ngaye usesela in the house baqala ke abanye lengaphandle bafuna ukubonisa iSouth Africa ukuthi akekho uDintswalo lo okhuluma ngaye. Ngifuna ukuthi mina namhlanje umlayezo engiwusa kuDintswalo ngithi kuye, you are not alone in this journey. Reach out for help, share your story and connect with others who have faced similar challenges like you, but also reach out to the government of the African National Congress, whose sole purpose of existence is to change you into a better Dintswalo. I want to say, abo Dintswalo, abaningi lapha ngaphandle, you are worthy, you are capable, and you are deserving of a better future. Ngicela ukuthi kuthiwe namhlanje ngini ngusweeper kodwa ke anginikwanga umshanyelo ngoba if benginikewe umshanyelo ngabe ngithathe wonke lamazwi avela ngapha ngawashanyela kancane kancane ngaze ngawakhipha ngomnyango akodwa kaninikanga umshanyelo. Next time ngicela ninginike umshanyelo. Ngicela ukuthi ngithi kini ke ningalaleli uSteenhuisen with his lot. Don't listen to people whose sole purpose of existence is to demoralize you. They tell you nothing has happened since 1994. Don't listen to Honorable Steenhuisen and his lot, who don't listen to nobody but himself and his lot. Don't listen to the so-called moonshoot. Don't listen to pessimism. Don't listen to any of those people who want to tell you that nothing has happened since 1994. I want to say today, Mr. President, we are here because we are a government that cares. We are here because many of my colleagues have spoken about the past of where we came from and where we are. I do want to remind you, Chairperson and honorable members, that we, those who struggled to bring this South Africa to where it is today, at the time that we were struggling, we thought it would not be possible. We thought democracy would not come. We thought we were lost and would die outside. And those who were in prison and all, they thought it wasn't going to be possible. But what made it possible was the commitment of all South Africans, irrespective of race, color, or creed, who stood up and said, apartheid, like Israel apartheid, will not survive. Will not survive because many people commit themselves to changing the lives of people. Honorable Chairperson, let me remind the naysayers and those with self-inflicted amnesia what we inherited when we came into office. The destruction of the family unit and communities torn apart by slave trade and migrant labor system, which we still suffer today. Apartheid policies that impoverished individuals, created spatial poverty traps, and negatively impacted on the human capital formation of Black people in particular. A fragmented social welfare system based on race, gender, and geographical location. Welfare policies, legislation, and programs were inequitable, inappropriate, and ineffective in addressing poverty and basic human rights. And I would like to say, Mr. President, as a Minister of Social Development, it pains me to walk up and down the streets of Cape Town and see the number of people who are homeless. It pains me to see the DA talking so much, just 200 meters from here. Walk down the street, Mr. President. I'll invite you one of the days. We walk and we see how many of our people are languishing in poverty outside on the streets of Cape Town. And I say to the people of South Africa, we care even for those who are out there because they are part and parcel of ourselves. We care for them. This government of the Western Cape that pretends like it is taking care of our people, just walk out there and see what it is. Mr. President, in your State of the Nation address, you outlined the remarkable journey we have traversed and the massive gains we have achieved under this government for all South Africans. And let me tell you, as you sit here and look at me, I don't look at any South African from any point of view other than the fact that this is a South African who needs assistance. This is a South African who needs to pay attention by the government of the African National Congress. And so what have we done since then? Ngiyambona noSoli ukhona lapha phakathi kwenu. Mina naye uSoli sithathene lapha eNCOP. Ngiyabezwa nje oSteynhuisen namhlanje sekuyibo abakhuluma ngama-grants. Impela nina yini enikhuluma ngama-grants nina ebenisitshela ukuthi the economy is not capable of paying the grants? Yini esenikhuluma ngama-grants ngoba siya kuma-election? Yini ebenisitshela nisasitshela namanje ukuthi if the economy doesn't grow, asikwazi ukubhadala ama-grant? Let me tell you, we have been paying the grants from 1994 to date. Even when the economy is not doing very well, we have stood up and said, we shall be with the people of South Africa. Whether the economy is not doing well or not doing well, it remains our responsibility and our capability to make sure that those that have absolutely nothing, at least we can give them something and help them to lift themselves up. Nina, Niti, give the men a rod to fish. And I'm saying, where's that river? Where's that fish? And Kulumangai. Tina, we have the river, we have the fish. What we have done, Honorable Speaker, improve access to sustainable livelihoods and entrepreneurial opportunities through grant funding and capacity building of civil society organizations, progressively expanded social protection coverage from 2.4 million in 1994 to a whooping 28 million to support those who cannot support themselves. We are currently providing regular income support each month without fail to more than 4 million older persons, about 1 million adults with disabilities, and 160,000 children with disabilities. More than 13 million children from poor households receive child support grant, while a further 237 children are supported through our foster grant. Provide financial support to the tune of 8.2 billion rand to non-profit organizations. Increase the number of children benefiting from early childhood development. And Mr. President, you spoke so eloquently about the ECD, about early childhood development, because that didn't swallow. The first one that we have of the 30 years, the next didn't swallow of the next 30 years will be very different even from the one of the current 30 years. We have created 500,000 employment opportunities through expanded public works, address disproportionate impact of poverty on women through women empowerment, pass progressive pieces of legislation such as the Children's Act to ensure protection of children, intensified international collaboration with development and UN agencies such as UNICEF, UNDP, ILO on best practices, expanded access to care and support services for victims and survivors through the implementation of Pillar 4 of the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence, capacitated the Gender Violence Command Center and the National Emergency Team. I also would like, Mr. President, to say we need to look no further than the 2023 National Senior results. Of the 897,775 grade 12 learners who wrote NSC, 54378 full-time learners were social grant beneficiaries, with 62 out of 110 top performing learners in different categories. And Mr. President, we do say today, sithi nje qaba qaba, sisazobuya when we further explain during
Yes.
the budget speech
Your
as
time is
well
up.
as the, thank you, Chairperson Nina, hambani yolala.
Now, thank you very much, honorable members. We will now have a lunch break and we'll come back at 13:30 or 1:30 p.m. And we'll leave in the following order: the Speaker, the President, Deputy President, and the rest of us. So, I'm told that the lunch arrangements are as follows. So please note that lunch will be on sale at the following venues: ground floor, David Bloomberg Hall; second floor, banquet